Hello and welcome back to Division One Rejects. This is episode 5. Once again with your host Kobe Manzo. I'm joined in the dorm once again by my man Zach Keene on the board. Zach, how you doing today?
What's going on?
And we have a new one on Division One Rejects today. Welcome, Michael Neff. Mike, how you doing, boss?
Oh, I'm doing great.
I'm excited to get to talk today about a lot of college football. We have a fellow Lions fan on the podcast. So we outnumber Zach now 2-1 from Lions to Packers.
Oh no, you always did, but
yeah, that's true. But Connor was a less vocal Lions fan. He kind of just agreed with some of the concepts. But today, the headline really for this podcast, and I know Sports Illustrated wrote a long article about it, Nick Saban. We want to talk about him at length and how he was saved by a women's soccer player at Texas A&M. Also, later in the podcast, I want to talk, like we said, with the Lions fan, a potential comeback season for our Detroit Lions as they move into week 6 or 7 of the NFL season. We'll talk about NMU, who is experiencing a football shutdown right now. We are unable to practice due to COVID, so stay tuned to find out about that. And per usual, this podcast is recorded in my dorm room. We'll have a video available on YouTube, so if you're watching on YouTube, hello. But also, if your friends are looking to find Division One Rejects, tell them to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.m, pretty much wherever they listen to podcasts. So, fellas, today I want to start with college football. And like I said, Nick Saban, he came back to coach in that win over Georgia. That was huge. Number 2 versus number 3. One of the biggest games in college football, hyped up throughout the week. And this was really the benefit of a rule that was only 9 days old in the SEC. So this is the point that I want to talk about, because over a month ago, a women's soccer player at Texas A&M tested positive for COVID-19, right? She claimed she didn't do anything to really put her in a situation where she would be exposed to the virus. She was wearing a mask. She was socially distancing. She was doing all of the right things. So she was very confused why this is happening. We've seen false positives before, but we've never really seen them at this high of a level. So what she did is she got tested at a local student health center on campus. And then after this, she showed the school. And the school said, okay, well, we'll test you again. So they tested her 3 consecutive times, 24 hours apart. And after this, they determined that it was a false positive test. So basically, she was allowed to participate in soccer activities again. SEC comes together. They draft a new rule based on her experience. 9 days later, Coach Nick Saban, head coach of Alabama football, goes down with COVID. But wait a minute. No, it wasn't COVID. It was a false positive. I would have never saw this coming, but he probably didn't even know about this, right? He probably didn't even know about this, and for that to have that big of an impact, I think that's awesome, and for it to come to light like this on the biggest stage. Did you catch any of that Alabama game, and how big was it for them to have Saban back on the sideline?
I caught a lot of that Bama game, but
Sweet.
I definitely saw that Saban was needed in that game, and it was huge for Bama to have him. But for this women's soccer player at Texas A&M, that whole thing. People were kind of curious about this whole situation the entire time, about whether or not someone could have a false positive or whether they were just asymptomatic the entire time. But when a person like that is desperate to go back to whatever they were currently doing, and they want to challenge the fact that it might be a false positive, that was good for Nick Saban to be able to be like, okay, this worked for her, let me try it, and then ended up doing the same exact thing, and that was huge for Bama.
Yeah, that was a big-time thing. And I know, like you said, like someone could be asymptomatic, all those things. I personally had COVID-19 in early August. I had a runny nose for 3 days. I never knew. And it affects every person individually. It affects them in different ways than the last person, and that's what makes this virus so unique and so terrible, really, in my opinion, because there's no textbook symptoms like, okay, when you have the flu. Yeah. Like, you're going to be throwing up, you're going to be in bed with a fever, bedbound for a couple days, but I think that's the thing that sets us apart from so many other viruses or pandemics or anything, is that you could literally be walking around and you have no idea that somebody could be infected. So I know just right now with us at Northern Michigan, we unfortunately, our football activities have been postponed due to COVID, and we saw teams like Michigan Tech have been, involved with a shutdown, and that was, classes and football. Thankfully for us, we're still able to go to classes and operate, even though it's through Zoom and things like that. We are not really allowed to be in person at this time for football because of COVID. And we've seen teams across the GLIAC, this has happened to them. And for a spring season to happen, which is the plan right now, for an 8-game spring season to happen, this is going to be something that we either solve or figure out how to deal with. And I think COVID's not going anywhere.
I mean, you look at, not to get too off topic, but you look at MHSAA. It's in the exact same area, and they're operating. They might shut down for a week because of a team that has a couple COVID positives, but then the next week they're back and running. They just quarantine those certain players, and then they keep it going. And obviously it's on a smaller scale, but I mean, we're in between like high school football and like D1 college football, which are both operating. So I don't see why we wouldn't be able to have a season. Obviously there's so many different things that go into it, but you have no idea.
And we've talked about this before. I mean, we are really, besides the MIAA and Division III, we're really the only, football in Michigan that's not going on right now, which is, it sucks. It really does. And for those of you who do not know, MHSAA is the Michigan High School Michigan High School Athletic Association. Excuse me. I played in it. I should know what it stands for. But yes, the high schools are operating right now. All of our high schools, as far as I know, we're all playing, right?
Yeah, they're all playing.
Yeah,
they're not all
Sadly,
playing.
mine is not.
Utica is not playing.
No, they last week they had a player go down, so they missed this week and their next playoff game that they were promised. And sadly their season has come to an abrupt stop.
That's unfortunate.
Exactly.
I know Lake Orion is playing. Unfortunately, they lost tonight. But to give those kids their senior season, I know without my senior season, I would not have any scholarship offers to play football at the next level. So that's huge for kids like that, and a lot of kids who are in the same boat. If you're not going Division I and you're not getting, hence Division I rejects. If you're not going Division I, your junior year is really where you're going to get those looks from those big-time schools. And if you come out of your junior year without looks like that, your senior year is all you have to put something on tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even offers-wise. Like, how many kids that aren't looking to play college football are missing out on, like, an experience like playing your senior year in college or high school football?
That's something you're never going to get back. Like, high school football is so finite. And don't get me wrong, college football very much is too, but high school football is something where the community involvement is something that you're never going, I don't think you're ever going to replicate.
It's completely different.
It really is. It's a totally different dynamic. You have much more involvement with the town. I guess at our level, it's you can kind of see like a smaller base. It's like a town like Marquette that's a college town. But if you go to a big D1 school where like a East Lansing or a Wisconsin, Madison, Ann Arbor, schools like that, you're not going to have that same level of connection with your fans and things like that if you're playing in the big house opposed to a high school field.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge. So let's talk a little bit about, we talked about the GLIAC a little bit, but I wanted to go into, we had a couple more guys in the GLIAC this week that made some waves at the NFL level. A guy that we talked about last week was a Dolphins tight end, Adam Shaheen out of Ashland, who, we'll talk about Ashland in a second because they're actually moving out of the GLIAC, which I was unaware of. Yes, I know that reaction out of Zach is exactly how I felt.
I had no idea.
But Adam Shaheen out of Ashland with back-to-back games with a touchdown as the Dolphins stomp the Jets 24-0. The Jets are absolutely atrocious at football. They're 0-6, looking to get Trevor Lawrence, who might just stay at Clemson. But besides the point, the 6'7", 260-pound Eagles alum finishes with 3 receptions, 51 yards, and a touchdown, which... Is he going to start on your fantasy team? Probably not. But it's a D2 guy who's going out. He's making big-time plays. One of his catches, he had 351, but one of them was like 41 yards. It's a big-time play in the game. Obviously scoring. He's become a prominent red zone threat for the Dolphins, and now that's Tua's team, right? Yeah, we haven't even touched on that. But talk about Ashland a little bit. Yeah, they actually announced like a month ago. It's pretty quiet. It was a quiet announcement. I was scrolling through Twitter, and I found it. Ashland is going to be out of the GLIAC after this year.
What conference they're going to be playing?
They're going to be playing in the GMAC. So the Great Midwest Athletic Conference, I believe. So that schools like Findlay, schools like, who else is in the GMAC that we know of? Hillsdale is currently in the GMAC. So a lot of schools that actually used to be in the GLIAC, Hillsdale and Findlay.
Yeah, both of those teams.
Both ex-GLIAC teams. So great competition still in that conference. Not trying to put them down, but Ashland won the GLIAC, I think, just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that, for a team to go, they finished third, or was it third or fourth this past year? I think it was third.
They were in third. They were top 3.
They were finished third because Grand Valley was fourth. Because it was Ferris State, Wayne State, Ashland, and then Grand Valley. Because Ashland, and they actually had a chance to finish second. Because Ashland beat Grand Valley on the Hail Mary, right? Yeah. But the game that a lot of people forget is that they had a overtime loss to Wayne State, a double overtime loss, I believe. So that those 2 games are within 1 score, and for Ashland to leave the league after the success, the amount of success they've been having, and the continued success. What do you think this is? Do you think it's a travel issue because they're out in Ohio, far away from a lot of these teams? What is it?
I do think that probably had a very big, impact with that decision just because, the majority of the GLIAC, I think
they're
the only GLIAC teams
are all in Michigan.
Are all, placed in Michigan and Ohio, that
I think that definitely has a part to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that probably might be one of the biggest, if not the only. But because I don't want to say that they're running away from competition because they're definitely contenders in our league.
I know. Yeah, like it'd be very different if a school like on the bottom of the board was like, okay, like maybe it's our time to go play somebody else and win some games.
Yeah,
exactly. But if you're finishing third in the league and you're going to go play,
I have a feeling it's location.
Yeah, I would assume that has a big part to play, a big role to play in it. It's not going to affect. It's still the Division II level. It's not going to affect their scholarships or program or funding. I would assume anything like that.
It's definitely geographical. I don't know about you guys, but like when you look at the GLIAC, you see all these teams, and Ashland definitely seems like an oddball.
It does
because it's not in Michigan. Every single other school is in Michigan and in cities around Michigan that you've heard of, and Ashland's the only out of state.
Yeah, it's definitely odd. But another guy from the GLIAC who's making waves at the NFL level, you've probably heard this guy before, Matthew Judon for the Baltimore Ravens. He's outside linebacker for them, and the Baltimore Ravens defense has looked pretty solid, even though the Eagles kind of had their way with them a little bit in the second half of that game, but he made a huge play, stopped the Eagles from getting a 2-point conversion to tie the game late in the fourth quarter. Carson Wentz, it was kind of a weird... they were trying to run like an option play, and he got mixed up with the running back before trying to run to the end zone. But, hey, kudos to Judon. He was there. He made the play. Huge-time player for the Ravens. Their defensive line, their front seven is solid right now. So those are two guys right now for the GLIAC that I think we should keep an eye on for the next couple of weeks. We had a couple other guys, too, in the past couple of weeks that have made some big-time plays. But I wanted to say the NFL, our takes were kind of cold last week. Our takes were
off.
Our takes were off, dude. They were bad. So, Mike, obviously you weren't here.
Yeah.
The three of us took the Browns over the Steelers. We were riding the dog pound train, and that just shot us in the foot. And then on top of that, to make things worse, we're like, even as a Lions fan, I was kind of respecting like the Packers. They've really put it together this year. They've got the weapons. Aaron Rodgers is playing peak level football. What did they go to Tampa, and all of a sudden the Tampa Bay Gronkaneers.
No, it just came out flat.
Yeah, it's all it was. Okay, it's just a fluke. Okay,
that's a fluke.
It's just a fluke. It's a
whatever
fluke.
helps you sleep at night.
Put it in the review mirror.
I sleep perfectly at night. 4-1. I'm still chilling.
So we talked about Aaron Rodgers' dominance leading the number 1 ranked Packers. They were number 1 in the power rankings. Then he throws 2 interceptions, and one of them was a pick six. And I know you said one of them was I think that's fault, which in the books it's all the same. But it
was tipped. But the pick six, I would just like to put it out for the record. That was his third of his entire career.
Yeah,
his entire career.
It's wild. I want to say it's like one in every 5,000 or 6,000 passes has been a pick six. So for him to do that, and Tom Brady's thrown one in his last 3 games or something like that. Yeah. So he's definitely still playing great football. He just came out, and I think he just come out flat. I think that's a pretty good way to say it. But all three of us thought the dog pound would come out on top at Heinz Field. They got destroyed 38-7. And we talked about how the Steelers team played nobody, right?
Yeah, they didn't play anyone.
They really didn't play anybody.
There was no competition.
There was
in any
not
of the games
one team that played. They played with a record above 500. We learned that this week that Steelers defense is more than legit, and they are qualified to take people out. They have the Titans this week, so that's 5-0 against 5-0, and that interesting is a good way to say it because the Titans offense looked dominant with Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill had a hell of a game.
I think he's underrated right now.
Ryan Tannehill is playing with his chip on his shoulder because obviously the run they had last year was all predicated on Derrick Henry and that offensive line. He's got weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? He's got weapons out there, and he throws the ball very well. He can move out of the pocket and make plays, and he reads defenses very well. They looked really good against Houston, who put together a great game, by the way, even though they're sitting at 1-5.
Yeah.
But that Titans-Steelers game is going to be sick.
I mean, Titans have good wide receivers, too.
They do.
A.J. Brown's an elite wide receiver.
Yeah, only is his sophomore year, right? Second year.
Yeah, second year.
Him and DK, they both came out of Ole Miss same year.
Yeah,
and they also have Corey Davis out of Western.
Yep.
He was really good when A.J. Brown, I think, was hurt.
Producing, yeah. So, I mean, they really do have weapons across the board in that offensive line for them, but one person from that lineup I know is going to be out. Let's see. I know I had it written down here somewhere, but Taylor Lewan, the left tackle, the very well-spoken left tackle who I believe actually has a podcast, right? I think Lewan has a podcast.
Lewan does have a podcast.
I gotta listen to it, but I know he has a podcast. So that was something that I wanted to look for this week, especially when you're looking at the outside linebackers of Pittsburgh with T.J. Watt coming off the outside potentially against him. That front seven with Cameron Hayward and those type of guys. That's going to be a huge loss for the Titans in trying to get that pass game going, because T.J. Watt is definitely more of a prominent pass rusher, but he's still good on the run too. I mean, he's a stout defender all in all, but he definitely is more of a...
His game is pass rushing.
His game is definitely more predicated on pass rushing, but what do you think? I think for me, it's going to be the Pittsburgh offense stepping up, and that's what's going to need to get them the win.
I mean, honestly, they stepped up against the Browns.
They did.
I think that showed pretty apparently, but it was more of, I think Big Ben having his way, and he was just, tearing it up that game. And, Browns defense wasn't, necessarily the doormat of the league. So they were playing up against a pretty good defense. So, obviously I think Titans defense is probably going to be a little better than the Browns.
Yeah.
But not by much. I don't think it's going to be anything where it's like they go from scoring 38 to, below 10 or anything like that. I don't think they're going to be held to anything under 10, but still.
I mean, so go ahead. Mike.
I mean, the Titans defense does have a couple playmakers. They've got Jadeveon Clowney, Kevin Byard. I mean, they've got some playmakers that could give Big Ben in the offense
some problems. Yeah, and all it takes really, I mean, Big Ben has been super durable throughout his career. Obviously, I mean, he's
Big Ben.
He's Big Ben for a reason, but he's been injury prone as of late, and one wrong hit to Big Ben could be disastrous for Pittsburgh right now.
Broken head guy goes in.
Exactly, and then Rudolph goes in, and then he gets smacked with his own helmet, which thankfully we saw no altercation of any sort, and there were no headlines. So hey,
yeah, exactly.
We're moving on, right? We're moving on.
But that was a win for Myles Garrett. Let's just put it that way.
That was a win for Myles Garrett. Lewan tore his ACL, the left tackle for Tennessee, during Sunday's game against the Texans, and tweeted on Monday addressing his injury. He said, "Don't feel sorry for me. I'm going to handle this rehab like a pro and come back better than ever." So I love the attitude out of him, and I need to check out his podcast. I heard he has a great personality for that type of thing. But we talk about Tannehill and how he's underrated. Here's his stat line from Sunday's game against the Texans: 30 for 41, 366 yards, 4 touchdowns with that 1 interception. And Deshaun Watson really had a comparable stat line with 335 yards and 4 touchdowns of his own. But that deciding factor was Derrick Henry, and we talked about that. Derrick Henry had over 200 yards in the night, and we saw that 94-yard house call, right? And then they put him at Wildcat in overtime, and they said, we're going to give the ball to our best player, and you can pretty much try and stop him before he gets to the end zone.
Yeah. And that's, honestly, I feel like that's just been the story of the Titans so far.
Bully ball.
Derrick Henry is just a bully for the rest of the NFL defenses. So it's just, we haven't necessarily seen a running back built like him.
No, he's built different.
That can run, as fluid as he can.
Yeah, he moves so well, and he's so large.
Big. So that's like trying to tackle a defensive end that really knows how to run the ball.
Yes. I mean, he was flying on that 94-yard touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. And he said after the game, I got to be faster.
Oh yeah,
he said it wasn't fast enough.
22.
Yeah, he's got to get to like 22 miles per hour. Yeah. He's got to be faster. So
that's scary.
It is scary.
That's so terrifying.
That's so extremely scary for a guy like you said that size and like just built the way that he is. Yeah, exactly. The stiff arm. We haven't even talked about the stiff arm on that dude. His wingspan. No. His wingspan has to be unreal. He took Norman like he was a child, like a small child, and just threw him to the sideline. So I'm not really sure. And the Texans, for me, they are 1-5. We were talking about this a little bit earlier off the podcast, and they're 1-5, and they're 1-5 for a reason. They've had some issues in the locker room. Supposedly, J.J. Watt came out and called out the staff and some other things, but none of that really has come to light, like in official reporting. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not really going to believe any of that until somebody reports it, and there's an article written about it or anything like that. But they're playing good football. They're not playing bad football. I think this week and the next coming weeks, I think we might see a chance for a couple Texans wins.
Yeah.
But the other side of the NFL, let's talk about our Detroit Lions. This is what I wanted to talk about. At the beginning of the year, Detroit fans, although we don't get our hopes up very often, right? We talked about this. We don't get our hopes up, and that's for good reason, right? Because you do not want to be let down. But then when you begin the year and you look solid, and then even in the beginning of pretty much every game, Detroit comes out and they usually score first.
They come out and they start playing well.
They do. And then for some reason it drops off. But really, this year, it seemed like all the pieces were coming together. Patricia, no more excuses. He's in his third year. He's trying to put things together. You got Stafford back, supposedly healthy and as good as ever. You got the running back room that has really filled out with Carry-On. You got Swift, and then the mentor in AD. Or AP. Well, he really goes by both, right?
Yeah, it's
all day and then AP.
I mean, it was a good signing. He's been playing well for his
He has. And then the mentorship for Carry-On, younger guys like Carry-On and Swift, I think that's super important. And you got this wide receiver core coming back with Marvin Jones and Galladay and people on the line that are filling in. All these pieces are coming together for the Lions.
The offense is looking good, but big question mark is on defense.
Yes. So right now, really, the NFC North has been way more competitive than it has been in past years as far as teams have really come out. Obviously, the Packers have been a mainstay, right? They've been playing good football the last couple of years, but this year more so than most. And then all of a sudden, the Bears come out of nowhere, and they're 5-1, and they've got a hell of a season going on, even though they can't decide who their freaking quarterback is. Right? Yeah. They're putting together a year. Yeah, but they're 5-1. I don't know how. They are
5-1 until
I don't know how they're 5-1. Okay. I don't know how they're 5-1, but they are 5-1, and they're winning meaningful football games. But the Lions, we won't really talk about the Vikings because they're 1-5 and they can't figure out how to play football. But
they're just a lost cousin. Hey, the Bears, by the way, bad football team.
But yeah, Justin, resident Bears fan here. But
to 85
the Lions.
Bears.
The Lions. I think the Lions, this is their time. This is the time, and this is their time to prove that this could still be the year for Detroit. And it's been coming later. Don't laugh. It's been coming later than I would have liked. I would have expected. We just beat the Jags 34-16. Jacksonville, not a great football team. I acknowledge that fully. But this sets them up. They got a little bit of momentum going into these next 6 weeks. Let me tell you a little bit about these next 6 weeks. Guess what we have? Falcons, Colts, Vikings, Washington, Carolina, and Houston. The combined records of these teams are 11-25. So I'm not trying to, make out the Lions to be this great superpower of a team. I'm trying to tell you their opponents are going to stink. That's basically what I'm trying to tell you. Now, the two games that I see here, the Colts are playing pretty good football. The Panthers are playing decent football too. Those two games are going to be tough wins. And the one, I believe, is in Indianapolis. So we're going to be lucky to get away with that one. But the Falcons, the Vikings, and Washington, they're still trying to figure out how to feel the team. As far as I'm concerned, those are 3 games that if the Lions don't win those 3 games, I've completely given up on this season and possibly the franchise at this point, and I don't even know what to say.
I am actually extremely, just surprised that you haven't already, to be completely honest with you. If you're waiting till this season to say that you've given up on the franchise, you are truly lost.
Hey, my dad's been doing it for 50 years, so he's sticking around.
They've had like at least, I don't know. I feel like when they had Drew Stanton,
there was hope.
Were better than they are right now, at least.
Okay, let me sell you a little bit more. We're not going to be world beaters. The Packers are still going to be playing good football, I think. I think it was a fluke. I say it's a fluke, and Aaron Rodgers bounces back. The Packers are still playing great football, which I think is a good possibility. It's going to happen.
5-1.
Exactly. They're a good football team. Take a look at the Bears next 3 weeks. In LA, playing the Rams. They come back home to play the Saints, and then they're back on the road in Tennessee. That's 3 tough games. Now, again, if they come out of that with at least 2 wins, they're a legit team, and I'll give them that credit. But I think they win maybe one of those 3. I think the Bears are going to get shown up here in the next couple weeks.
They will. And that's just how it is.
I mean, being a Lions fan for all these years, they're going to drop one or at least one, possibly 2.
That game in Indianapolis, that's going to be a really hard one to pull out.
That's supposed to be a good game, but I'm saying they are going to lose to a team that
I'm sorry, but if you think they're going to run the table,
they will not.
There's just no way
I will admit,
they're going to run the table.
I will admit that including this game, for them to win 7 weeks in a row, that is pulling a miracle.
If they win 7 weeks in a row, I'll go back to being a Lions fan. Which is not going to happen.
You were at one time a Lions fan.
Yeah, when I was 5 and didn't know football.
So
before you decided to hop on the rivals bandwagon.
We have it on record. Yeah. We have it on record that if they go and win these next 6 games, then
I'm never going back to being a Lions fan.
Then I'm getting you in the Honolulu blue.
Sure.
Sure.
So
there we go. That's it. That's all I needed right there. That's all I needed. I'm so okay.
No chance.
Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pumped.
You're pumped. I'm feeling pretty relaxed.
I'm pumped. You're feeling pretty relaxed.
Because I know that's not gonna happen.
You have reason to be. But tell me what happened to Aaron Rodgers in Tampa Bay. Before I go on my little tirade, I'll let you kind of see what your perspective was on Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, obviously everybody's gonna have their off games. I don't necessarily think Rodgers played bad. I think that one that he forced to the outside, he just didn't put it in enough outside. He was surprised as everybody else was.
Oh, yeah.
He's a very prolific passer, and he knows his precision. He knows where he needs to place the ball. You could tell in his facial expression after he threw it, like, I am surprised I even just did that.
Yeah.
Like,
because he does it so rarely.
Yeah, exactly. He does it so rarely. He's normally very accurate with the football. That's just how it is. People have been saying that he's been, the best thrower of the football maybe ever. Next to Dan Marino.
Who was saying that?
Zach said
literally
that.
everybody
said that.
Okay, but just name somebody. Name somebody that's a better thrower of the football than him.
The guy that beat him.
Tom Brady is not a better thrower of the football than you're on drugs if you think Tom Brady is a better thrower of the football.
Anyways, I wanted to mention that it was a bit of a situational. I guess you could call it a coincidence, but after 3 times, I think it becomes more than a coincidence for whatever reason. He's been historically bad playing in Tampa. This is with and without Tom Brady. So, whether it has to do with Tom or not.
Tom Brady sucks.
That's irrelevant. But just glossing over that, the last 2 times he's played in Tampa, he's left the game with injuries. One being a hip, one being a shoulder. And although he was not injured in this last game per se. I mean, his ego might have gotten hurt a little bit. But
nah, he's fine.
His game was anything but stellar. What do they do to bounce back? I know they got some weapons back on defense, too, with the addition of, like, Kenny Clark coming back and some key players.
I'm not even worried about it because I think what also is shown is that you can say Tom Brady, whatever the hell you guys want, but the Tampa Bay defense is legit. I don't care what anybody says.
They're good.
Their defense is insane.
And guess who they just signed?
Who?
Antonio Brown.
Are you legit?
Really?
You didn't see that?
When was this posted?
1-year deal. Antonio Brown is going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I saw something about him getting another chance or something, but
I love that I was able to break that to you guys. That is legit.
I thought
he's going on a 1-year deal. Everyone thought he was going to the Seahawks. He's going to Tampa Bay.
No, okay. Well,
so
right now,
weren't there rumors before the season?
There were, but now it's real. Rumors are rumors, but this is real. So Tom Brady. Not only does he have Rob Gronkowski, who's had a pretty quiet season as far as Rob Gronkowski is concerned.
Last game, not so much.
He had a great game against the Packers after O.J. Howard went down.
That's true. So besides glossing over that, he's got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown.
I think they should be producing way more than they have.
Oh, they should be. You just
hear
all those names?
They need to be producing way better.
The thing was, Godwin was out with a hurt hamstring. Mike Evans has been playing on half a foot, supposedly. That's what he's saying. He's got a hurt foot. And then you have
from sucking, but
we'll see about that. But then their running back room also with what's his name? They have Fournette, I know for sure.
They have McCoy, Fournette.
Who's their starter?
Something like Roberts or something.
It's like Roger.
Yeah, but anyways,
like
their running back room is stacked too. Really, all around they're stacked, and you talked about their defense is legit. So when I heard at the beginning of the season, that all these veteran type guys who have been in the league for a while were going to Tampa Bay to quote unquote ring chase, I was like, okay, like no way. This is a team that could do that, and they just proved against a solid Green Bay team that they have what it takes to win big time football.
I still don't think that Packers had every single. I think if both teams are healthy, that's a way better game than it was. And I still think the Packers are coming out with that. If they play later in the season, which is a great possibility.
Okay.
I still think the Packers are to come out with it, especially Rodgers in the playoffs is just a little bit different of an animal. Besides, the NFC Championship last year, but
yeah,
I'll admit that. But also, I feel like the defense was a little more of an issue last year, which now I don't think it is because of all the additions that we've made and, just people getting a little bit more experience in the interior defense.
Packers defense looks really good. And also keep in mind, Tampa Bay didn't have Vita Vea, who is their big run stopper right up the middle.
Yeah, they did not actually. You're right. I didn't think about that.
No, and they did a pretty good job, I want to say, stopping that run game, and Aaron Jones, who was lighting it up for the first few weeks.
Was Adams back for this week too?
Yeah, he was.
He was back, right? So that we were talking about
because that's who he was throwing to.
Exactly.
Actually, both picks both picks, the target was Adams.
Adams was the target for both interceptions.
Yeah, the quick out that he threw threw a little behind that got jumped. The pick six, that was targeted towards Adams. And then the slant, it was in Adams' hands. Tough grab, but
that I did not know.
It just popped right out.
That was supposed to be a big return for Green Bay, too, because we talked about how last week how Aaron Rodgers has had so little first-round draft picks that he's thrown to in his career compared to a guy like Tom Brady or pretty much, any other quarterback in the league, ever. Right? So for a guy of his caliber and his pedigree to return, you would think, well, yeah, he should be targeting him. So I'm glad to hear that at least that he was, but kind of shifting gears here a little bit, I wanted to finish on Big Ten football, and it's back right now. Actually, Wisconsin and Illinois are playing as we speak. Wisconsin is up 35-7 over the Fighting Illini kind of early in the fourth quarter, but anyways, fellas, we got 5 teams ranked in the top 25 from Big Ten, and they haven't even played a game. So I think that just kind of speaks to the respect that the AP poll has for these teams and their caliber of play. Ohio State is at 5. Penn State's at number 8. Wisconsin is tied for 14th with UNC, which may be going up after this game. I guess we'll see. Michigan's at 18, and Minnesota is at 21. Those last 2 teams are actually playing tomorrow. So Michigan travels to Minnesota, who finished 7-2 in conference play last year. So that is going to be a huge game. I think Minnesota has kind of been on the cusp of having something really great with PJ Fleck, rowing the boat and whatever else they do in Minnesota. They've really been on the cusp of having something great as far as their football program goes.
Oh yeah,
they've had a big win, I feel like, over a big time opponent, and then kind of a slump afterwards, and then another big win and kind of a slump. Does that change? Are they upsetting Michigan here? I guess you could call it an upset due to the rankings.
It's all going to depend. I haven't been able, it's going to be so hard to tell, especially with these
That's
first
true
few
because
games.
they've been out of it.
Nobody's going to really know. Michigan could come out and just play stellar, or Minnesota could do the exact same. So I honestly have no idea. If you're going off of the teams that they have last year, I'm taking Minnesota.
Michigan's got a new quarterback though, a younger quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that
Joe
did not
Milton.
get any snaps.
Yeah, Joe Milton's pretty talented. I'm not going to lie.
He's a very talented individual,
and that's coming from a Spartan.
As far as game experience goes,
he still had a few games though.
Yeah, he got in
shown his
garbage time stuff, but he's
exactly.
I'm not trying to downplay him and say he's not a great quarterback, but playing in a hostile environment in Minnesota and really this is a primetime game
against Minnesota's veteran quarterback.
Exactly, playing against a team that is top 25 caliber. This is going to be a game where we'll kind of see the best of that quarterback or the worst, depending on how he performs, obviously. But our first real big taste of Big Ten football is tonight. Illinois, Wisconsin, as I already mentioned. Wisconsin.
Graham Mertz is going insane. He's 14 for 14.
In the first half, he was 14. He was perfect in the first half, which is, in football, that is unheard of. That's awesome for him to be able to do that. So Wisconsin, obviously ranked 14. People already knew they were going to be on the scene, especially after last year having a great year. But a game that I wanted to highlight was next week on Halloween. Michigan, MSU, Ohio, Penn State. Those are going to be 2 matchups that are going to be absolutely unreal.
Oh, yeah. Those are going to be great games to watch. I'd love to say that Michigan State's going to, take over.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one for the Spartans this year. I definitely have a feeling.
I don't know. You never know.
You don't.
Mel Tucker, you never know.
No, you have no idea. And like you said, not only have they been out because of COVID and obviously out of experience and not being able to be on the field, but a brand new head coach, right? And this system, and you have this whole change of a recruiting class and culture and everything, and they actually have a new strength and conditioning coach there too. And this has really been a culture change, I think, for the whole Michigan State program. And whether or not that's a good thing, we're going to see here, I think, just tomorrow, really, when they open the season with Rutgers
coming in. Yeah, okay, dude.
Rutgers.
They're going to take down Rutgers.
I didn't even put it on our sheet. I'm sorry. I should have written it down. I did not.
Hopefully, they run away with it, which they will. But Mel Tucker, just to go off a little bit of a topic, but
that's okay.
Mel Tucker has done a great job with recruiting. I don't know if you've noticed, but he's done a lot better with recruiting, bringing these big 4-star recruits in. Just those just tier players.
Yeah.
That D'Antonio never necessarily really did.
Now I will say that really was never the identity of Michigan State.
Yeah, exactly.
That was
they would do The most with the least.
That's
is
true.
what they would do.
But at some point, you have to think maybe we should try going out and getting those guys because that's
exactly.
like a team like Michigan. They always have one of the best recruiting classes in the country.
It's just constant 5 stars.
You could go on the other side of that, and I definitely will play devil's advocate because I'm a Michigan State fan. Michigan goes out and gets all these 4 and 5 star recruits. How many Big Ten championships do they have? Since in the Jim Harbaugh era, so
absolutely, and
exactly
Ohio State victories.
Exactly. So you can really argue both sides of the coin. Although I'm excited to see a kind of rejuvenated and refreshed Michigan State and their culture and see how they come out. Other big games we have an ACC in-state rivalry with UNC, who's number 14, and NC State, number 23. The Tar Heels are ranked higher, but are 3-1 in conference play as opposed to the Wolfpack at 4-1. NC State. They really haven't been on the scene, at least I don't think too long. They've been kind of a quiet program, and I think the opportunity of having some of these Big Ten teams out and having some of these big-time like Pac-12 teams, all these teams, it's given some of these teams we haven't been able to talk about a lot the chance to slip into that top 25 and kind of make a name for themselves and get a little bit of attention. Another game I wanted to look at was Iowa State, at number 17. They're going on a run. We talked about them actually in our first episode of Division I Rejects when they lost their season opener to Louisiana. They beat TCU, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech. Those are 3 games that are, big-time opponents, primetime football games. Now they're going on the road to play Oklahoma State, sitting at number 6. I think they're going to get rolled. Oklahoma State looks solid in all facets of the game. Chuba Hubbard, I don't know. I thought it was Chuba, but the announcers say Chuba. I don't really...
Chuba Purdy? Is that who you're talking about?
No, Chuba Hubbard, the running back from Oklahoma State.
Oh, Chuba Purdy is the quarterback for Iowa State.
Oh,
that's what I was getting mixed up.
Really? Well, there we go. The battle of the Chubbas or the Chubas. We'll see. Anyways, that's all we've got for this episode of Division I Rejects. So I wanted to thank you guys for listening. Mike, Zach, thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate it, fellas.
Problem.
Glad we could crank this one out. And I'm excited to watch some Big Ten football.
Definitely.
I'm super excited to see the Big Ten back.
It's going to feel a little more normal.
It really is. Life is returning to normal. Even though at Northern we're kind of locked down football-wise right now, we're going to make the best of it, and I hope you guys are too. So have a great weekend. Watch some football. Check out the Big Ten. See ya.